Afternoon, everybody. I believe we're just before your lunch slot. Don't worry, I think we're only on for about an hour and 20 minutes, so if you are hungry, you'll have to bear with us. So my name's Mark Lomas. I'm one of the channel directors at Gamma. I'm joined today by Paul Craft, who is one of our senior IP specialists. And we're going to talk about sort of modern telephony in Teams voice and maximising Teams voice. What I'm going to start with, though, is just sort of a brief of who are Gamma. I expect probably 70 or 80% of the room don't know who we are. So Gamma are, we're a network. We interconnect with all the main carriers, international mobile carriers in the UK. And at any one time, we probably have around about 30% of all the business traffic in the UK goes across our network. 80% of how we operate is via the channel. So partners like Computer World, who purchase our products at wholesale and then provide them services to yourselves. We just turned 20 years old as a business. We started out in lines and minutes, for those who remember, trying to get pence per minute rates down as cheap as they can do, into being the leading IP provider, supporting around about 6 million customers in the UK at this moment in time. Our goal is to be the number one provider in Europe for unified communication services. At the moment, we are the UK number one provider. We support around about 1.4 million channels of SIP, around about 750,000 hosted subscriptions, and with the market leader and the number one provider for Microsoft with their voice applications. What I'm sort of going to focus on, I'm going to focus on some market trends of, it's about dividing tomorrow. I'm going to talk about the market trends and why we're here today, and the issues and the problems which are faced by you, the customer, and those in the industry. So, can you hear me? Have I gone off? I shout loud enough anyway. So change is being driven by you, the customer. And also, probably the biggest technology overhaul in the last 50 years is making us have to change how we operate and how we communicate with our customers. But it's yourselves who are driving that change. So this is sort of an industry and a bit of a Gamma market overview from 2019 of what we would see sort of the next 7 years within the voice market would be. From 2019, probably the next midterm 3 to 5 years will be SIP, hosted telephony, replications of the telephone systems that you have today, with the true unified communications wave that's omni-channel, integrated contact center services into the SMB space, probably around about 7 years away. But what happened was, we had this thing called the pandemic, and that simply moved everything forward because of the COVID health measures. The buyers and consumers' behaviour changed overnight. We had to move into a home working environment. Unfortunately, the technology we had in place enabled us to do that. And I think if the pandemic had happened 5 years earlier, the outcomes would be very much different. But the main reason being connectivity in the UK just wasn't good enough, and in a lot of cases, cost effective enough to deploy that for organisations. So we've seen a massive jump forward. But the way we are communicating, the way your customers are communicating to you has changed. So 70% of customers are using more than 3 channels to communicate with your business. So you need to ensure that you've got multiple medias that your customers can interact with. 79% of people would prefer to interact if available via web chat because they want a swift response. But 80% of consumers consider the customer experience to be as important as the products or the services itself. And that's because we're all impatient. Before the pandemic, I never used Amazon. I use Amazon constantly, daily. If it's next day now, I'm disappointed because I can get that service delivered to me on the same day. We've all become impatient. And 82% of customers in sales want an immediate response. And 90% of customers rate an immediate response is extremely important to them. So it's all about that customer experience journey and the technology that's there to put us on this journey. But the problem is what do you do? Where do you go? What technology do we need? Do we need to make an investment? We're in a cost of living crisis. Do I need to spend money to actually bring my business forward? Is the organisation I'm going to work with, are they going to be able to deliver the product today and also deliver the products as technology evolves over the next 5, 10 years? But you've got no choice. There are some market drivers which are happening. So who is aware? Does anyone know what the PSTN network is? Okay. Well, for those who basically don't, it's a legacy telephony network that we all use. Is anybody aware it's been switched off? That's 1, 2. That's good, because there's a massive opportunity here for you, Barry. The legacy network's been switched off. You've got the 5G rollout. That's going to revolutionise how we use our mobile devices and how we operate daily. Fibre to the premise, or FTTP, or it's ultra-fast broadband now. It's been advertised on the TV. The expectation is that's going to be 80% of the UK footprint by 2025. And as this is all happening, we're seeing the lease lines and Ethernet bearers are becoming greater with higher SLAs and higher bandwidth. And we can't forget the one at the bottom, which is Microsoft. Yeah, they have taken over the world, and we have to work with them, which is great. Yeah, because we're all in this world, especially because of what happened with the pandemic, is we're all using them services. So I'm just going to focus on this briefly, which is the PSTN switch off, because it's really, really important. And I'm not here to scare you, but it's happening. So in 2025, this network is being turned off. And if I go back to the earlier slide, is the biggest technology overhaul in 50 years. So we're talking about defining tomorrow, but really we've got to look at today. Because once this network switches off, you've got to make sure that you're on an all IP. So that's going to be things like FTTP, SAGIA, Microsoft direct routing, hosted systems, SIP, and everything else that goes with that. But what's important is you've got 2 dates. You've got what they call a stop sell and an end of life. So anybody who lives in Salisbury, you're pretty knackered because you've only got about a week and a half left before that technology switches down. So anybody who's in a stop sell, which is already 155 exchanges in the UK, you only can now purchase IP telephony. But there's actually a stop sell nationally in 2023. So what I would say to yourselves is speak to Computer World, look at your infrastructure. There's about 50% of the UK have made some move towards an all IP, but you could have moved your telephone system to a hosted environment, but your connectivity still could be on a legacy service. So it will impact all of you. So I would definitely look at your infrastructure to see, let's make this change. Don't allow your competitors to get in front of you who are already on this journey, and please do not leave it to sort of 2023. We're expecting in the industry to be doing 100,000 migrations a day. The industry's doing about 5,000 a day. So I implore you to get on it ASAP and speak to Computer World to look at your estates to see about moving off this technology. We talk about connectivity. This underpins everything in your business. And what we did find during the pandemic is organisations whose connectivity was poor really, really struggled. You've got the emergence of things like fibre to the premise, 5G, and what I will say is for those organisations who are on a legacy broadband package is, again, speak to Computer World, let them look at the actual infrastructure that you've got and put something better in place for you, especially if you're running lease lines, Ethernet services, and these were put in place a couple of years ago. Because as much as we need to change in connectivity, the cost to actually serve these has drastically reduced. So you'll be able to get super fast connectivity, probably around about 80% cheaper than what you could get this 2 or 3 years ago, and faster. As I said, we look at Microsoft. Yeah, arguably sort of the most important piece for us as an organisation is plumbing Microsoft in, whether that is just using it for video, you need the right connectivity to do that. For voice, you need to put in direct routing. But what I will say is, look at your infrastructure now. Speak to Computer World, who will be able to look at everything, put a solution in place, and actually move you forward. I'm now going to hand over to Paul, and he's going to talk about Teams direct routing in more detail.
Lovely. Thank you very much. So coming on to the Microsoft piece, following on from what Mark said, many of you have already gone through that piece around how we're going to get remote working to now hybrid or agile working, as it is called today. So Microsoft has been one of those enablers, and hence some of the staggering numbers that you see behind me. The way that teams are going to be working, interacting and collaborating, Teams has really been a default. I think about 50% of businesses have already standardized on Teams, and that's looking in the next couple of years to about 2/3 of all businesses will be standardized on Teams. So 270 million active users today, 80 million of those are making calls, and then 12 million of those are doing that via the PSTN using that as their dedicated phone system, and that's only going to continue to accelerate. The way that they've been doing that is around direct routing primarily, not via calling plans from Microsoft, but via direct routing, as you see on the graph here in yellow. We already saw what's happening. We saw what was happening within that industry, admittedly not as quick, but we already had that in place. So we built a dedicated Teams architecture, dedicated for Teams with our direct routing service. Over the next few years, you'll see from 0 to over 3 million, there's Operator Connect coming as well. So this was anyone that's not familiar with that was announced by Microsoft last year. We are now one of 43 global providers that can offer Operator Connect and part of that global Operator Connect program. So with that, we've innovated, we've continued to adopt that within our network, but Microsoft, as always, haven't sat still either. So if you had looked at the Teams phone a couple of years ago, the comparable, daily, if not weekly, there's new capabilities being brought onto the Teams phone. So your current phone system today, what's it doing, what capabilities, what features do you need? Those will no doubt already flow into the Microsoft Teams phone, as it's called today. Things like call queues, auto attendance, call parking, everything that you would expect from a phone system is in with that Teams phone license. They've improved the UI, so the user experience, the way that you can integrate into all of the Office 365 applications, make calls directly from an email now within a chat, within a group, a channel. All of that integrates, as I say, within all the other Office 365 applications with a familiar user experience, all under that one sort of single pane of glass, as they say. So for us, we've got a real rich portfolio, all the way from our UC solution, which we've integrated to Teams, to our direct routing service, which, as I say, 100% uptime of the service, been going for 3 years, and the primary method that customers today are using and voice-enabling Teams. The new Operator Connect model that I've mentioned, as well as anything weird and wonderful, anything bespoke, that's also part and parcel. So anything other than a calling plan is available and through the guys at Computer World. It's not new for us, so we've already been providing services for over 15 years to Microsoft applications. So whether that be anyone that remembers OCS, Link, Skype for Business, and now Teams. We've deployed over 500,000 active users on the platform, and that continues to grow from large enterprises all the way down to SMB. We're a Microsoft partner in our own right, and as you would expect, we've got all the security, compliance, and privacy accreditations from our network, within our network. And all of that is underpinned, as Mark said, as being that #1 SIP provider, delivering our services to over 6 million customers in the UK. So, why Gamma and Computer World to enable Teams voice? One aspect, it's straightforward for what requirements you need. You need that underlying Office 365 license with Teams. You've probably already got that in place today. You'll need the Teams phone add-on. That gives you the PBX, the phone system capability for any users that are needing to make those external calls. You need an internet connection and the Gamma Computer World service as well, effectively giving you that access to the PSTN. So calls from a user at the bottom right there will go over the internet. They go into, find their Office 365 tenant, which is sitting in with Microsoft data centers in Azure. We've got a carrier tenant also within that data center that is linked over our interconnects into our own network. And that's where really that investment comes in. We've got carrier-grade Microsoft certified SBCs, session border controllers, which are managing that voice traffic. They will flow over via our market-leading SIP out to that PSTN, public switch telephone network, to make those external calls. So in a nutshell, what is the service? It's a high available service. So those carrier-grade multi-tenanted SBCs are in our network providing a high available service across multiple data centers. That resilient SIP build is included and with those interconnects. So what I'm saying there is it's a fully managed cloud service, don't need any hardware. It's resilient, fully scalable and high available service, hence the 100% uptime, touch wood to date. Easy ordering and management, that's where ComputerWorld can help with your porting needs, adding new numbers and actually configuring and managing that service for you. And we've even got a voice app that we've produced to help if you want to be more hands-on for managing some of those services yourselves. The big differentiator, and I'll come on to it just in a minute, is something called SIP Trunk Call Manager. That gives you the ability to manage all of your numbers within one platform at a network level. So the scenarios where your connectivity might go down or Teams might have a wobble, where are your calls going to be routed? And you've got full control over that, and you can pre-bake business continuity as well as disaster recovery scenarios. So it protects you from that side of things. And then lastly, you get a substantial call bundle as part of that service. So for most users, that's going to be an unlimited call bundle that's wrapped up and delivered to you. So I'll just touch on this briefly. We do see customers, which, especially during the pandemic, jump to calling plans to get up and running quickly. There's a few things that you should just be aware. One, cost, and that's something that you can compare with ComputerWorld's pricing there. But are expensive. You're going to make international calls, the actual service itself. But primarily, I think the more important ones is for yourself, you'd have to input a company credit card. So these communication credits to get the service going. Managing that, where opposed, probably not the best method of doing that. If any of you here have got 03 and 08 numbers, they're not supported within the platform, whereas the SIP Trunk Call Manager that I mentioned, you've got then full control over geographic and non-geo numbers. I think the most important is around having that support. ComputerWorld have got direct contact to network providers. We do provide SLAs around porting. So all of that is part and parcel, opposed to just logging tickets via the platform. Just a couple of things to bear in mind. So I did mention around SIP Trunk Call Manager. So as I said, that inbound call control for your numbers, building out those tailored business continuity plans for certain scenarios, and all of that is done with a whole list of features here. Three which really spring to mind because Teams can handle most of these for you. One is that you will get additional call stats and reporting. I've demoed this to a couple of people in the room already today. This reporting is over and above what you would receive within Teams. So you're starting to see how many calls you're receiving, calling trends over 6 months, your busy hours, all via the simple snapshot there. And these can be sent to you within daily, weekly, and monthly reporting. The big one for us is from a network level, you can now see all your calls being received, where those calls have been delivered, talk time, time to answer the calls. So all of that is fully available, and you can have full access, and I'm happy to demo that to anyone interested later on. I mentioned around the call plans. You can build those simple or sophisticated call plans for disaster recovery and business continuity, and having that full access. That access is via a web app as well as a mobile app as well. So if you think fire alarm in the building, with the mobile app here, one touch of a button, calls are now rerouted, maybe to the sales team's mobile numbers. So a really powerful tool that is part of our service and differentiators from other providers that can't do that. So to summarize, market leading, fully cloud service, high available, resilient, scalable service. Key features like fraud management, so protection over your call spend. You can speak to the guys having daily, weekly call spends in place, so you're not getting bill shocks or if there's any fraudulent activity on the phone system. And then lastly, that service wrap that I mentioned around ComputerWorld. I think Barry's going to touch on that in a moment, that additional added support. So we've got an offer. So the offer is, a free test tenant. So why not go and try that for 30 days? That's applicable to 5 users, 10 DDIs, no obligation with a £10 call spend. So those which have got Teams today, plug that in, run that service and play around with it. That's everything from me. I'm just going to pass you over to Barry.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So I just wanted to go over a little bit the computer world side of this and what we're doing. And it was very clear, sort of midway through the pandemic, that telephony was going to be the next thing that people wanted to bring inside Microsoft Teams. Everyone had already been standardizing all these elements into Teams. It was also very clear, as kind of described by Paul, that Microsoft offer a way for you to place your calls with calling plans, but it only really works for the smallest of organizations. There's a number of foibles with it that mean that actually it doesn't scale to larger organizations. The need to have calling credits, so a credit card effectively plumbed into it to place any phone calls that are outside of a normal phone call. It just doesn't really scale, and I don't think Microsoft are trying to do that. They've got great partnerships available that allow us to do that. So working with Gamma was a bit of a no-brainer for us. As you've heard, they're a good, reliable network. They're one of the biggest, if not the biggest, in the UK. So that's why we chose to work with them. But why Computer will get involved in this at all? I actually attended a conference recently that was full of traditional telephony companies. And they were all talking about how Microsoft Teams was eating their lunch and how being able to do these kind of things in Teams meant that they needed to know something about PowerShell. And this was scary to them. They weren't used to having to code. And look, come on, everyone in this room knows PowerShell isn't code, right? This is how we manage systems. The way that these telephony systems work now is aligned with Microsoft 365. It's aligned with the tool sets that we do. And at Computer World, we specialize in Microsoft 365 and Microsoft Teams. So this was a natural progression for us to get involved with this, but we needed a good, strong, reliable partner from a network perspective to handle those calls from us. So this is how the solution works, much the same as the diagram that was there. Your users will place the calls via their Teams client, a supported phone that we can supply you, using headsets in Teams rooms as per Michelle's section. The connection goes out to Microsoft phone system that is in Microsoft 365. We link it using direct routing to Gamma, where we can use all of the SIP trunk call manager features to handle those calls and reporting. That is really a differentiator for this service. And then that goes out to the network. The important piece is that we oversee this for you. We manage it for you. We can help you for the reporting. If you've got problems, we can do that. You get training for your users included as standard. It doesn't need a lot of training, but you want to point people in the right direction. We've all installed phone systems, bought it for the reason of the million features it has. You ask a user 6 months later, how do you transfer a call? And no one knows how to transfer a call from A to B. So we make sure those things are covered. So the real value here is we're bringing in the value of the Microsoft phone system, the Gamma network with Computer World's advice to help you set it up, to configure the call queues, and to make sure that that is working. If you need a contact center solution as well, we can help with that. We've got customers in the room that are running contact centers that we've delivered for them. We're able to support them. We're able to help you customize it as things goes by, and we're able to offer training. As that's in-person training, which tends to be over Teams these days, as well as training on our .365 platform as well. So I think that's what we've got at the end of the presentation. The other thing that I wanted to reflect on here was the connectivity piece, the piece that was touched upon briefly. Because lots of our customers are looking at the way that their offices and their remote locations are connected at the moment. Lots of people traditionally will have had MPLS connections, going into a traditional connectivity provider where they're managing bringing it all together. Now, in this modern, flexible way of working, it's quite a legacy way of doing things. It doesn't offer that flexibility to get things up and running as quickly as possible. So working with Gamma, we're able to offer cost-effective connectivity solutions, looking at diverse routing. So if you're looking to go to the cloud, for a large percentage of your applications, we can make sure you've got good, reliable connectivity options, as well as looking at the SDDC overlay, so not the SDDC, the SD-WAN overlay, the ability to bring these all together at a software layer. So we're able to use people like Barracuda that you can speak out there to today, and other providers, so you don't have to have the MPLS technology, but you've got a virtual solution. So if all of a sudden the CEO's home connection is one of the most important connections to your business, we can look to find the best connectivity options, and we can hook him in to the network in the best secure way to be able to support that. So make sure you go and have a chat with the guys from Gamma. Anthony is also there, able to talk about our .365 platform or how we'd handle the telephony project, as well as looking at some of the devices that you could implement. But thank you very much to Gamma, and I'll pass back to our hosts.